All right. So when it starts, when this starts, you start talking so that they see you first.
Okay.
All right. So when it starts, when this starts, you start talking so that they see you first.
I guess it already started.
I guess we've already started. Go ahead and you talk.
All right. So, good evening, everybody. I'm Justin Turner. I'm a candidate for District 4 City Council in the city of St. George. So, kind of tonight, we're first time we're able to broadcast live on YouTube, alternatively from the Zoom account. So, kind of with that, we have another avenue. We're still trying to fully work out the kinks. So, obviously, the first startup was a little shaky, but so with that, I'm gonna turn it over to my producer Maurice and let him kind of go through the instructions on how everything works.
Yeah, the other mess up was I wasn't supposed to be showing my ugly face, man. So obviously I really stepped off two things off the contract. So okay, I'm just joking, everybody. There is no contract. And no, it's great. Okay, so everybody, as we've been doing in the past, right now when you come in and all those of you that are in, you're muted and you'll stay muted. And but you can ask questions. You clicking on the Q&A button in Zoom. Go ahead and put your answers. When we get to about 8-10 minutes, we're going to go ahead and read some of those questions, and then get good 5, 7, 10 minutes, and then we'll move it to open lines. And once that's the case, we'll give everybody and anybody to open up their mics. We'll take it on a first come, first served basis as to who requests. And that's it. It was really fun. Get your thoughts, have a good conversation. If you are going to challenge Justin, please, when we give you the microphone, go ahead and just say, hey, Justin, I want to challenge you on certain things. And he's not going to say no. But what we think it's better radio, but better television. If you do that, then to all of a sudden just come out and create a challenging situation. We want to be a little more civil about it, but do challenging hard if you want. All right. Having said that, Justin, the floor is yours. Take it off.
Okay. So, kind of what I wanted to talk about is a few of my ideas and things like that for the home rule charter and kind of the areas that I kind of don't align within it. So, we'll go through section 2.4 talking about council benefits, section 2.5 talking about the veto, section 2.213 which talks about the power to levy and collect taxes, article 3 on financial management, um, the article talking about ethics, and the article talking about the amendments to the charter. So to kind of start with that, we'll talk about the council benefits. So one of the things with the council benefits is we're we're essentially being told that the salaries that are produced are the only compensation that's provided and things like that. So, but with that, in the charter, it actually talks about compensation for the addition of benefits and also the addition of reimbursable expenses, and the charter kind of leaves this open ended to where there's an opportunity for additional um, you know benefits and reimbursements and things like that to be added on after. The other part we'll go through is 210, where it talks about the veto. So right now the mayor has veto power, and in order for the council to overrule that, we we have a 3/4 majority of authorized members. And kind of what that means is 6 out of the 7, no matter how many are present. So if you only have 6 present, you need a unanimous vote in order to override the veto power.
Hey,
In
Justin,
my interpretation,
sorry to interrupt you. What section are you reading right now?
it's 2-10.
Do you want me to show it on the screen?
You can if you can pull it up.
Yeah, let me go find it, and I'll just, as you talk through it, I'll scroll through it so people can see it. All right, so you're at 210.
Okay. hmm
All right, go ahead. Keep going.
So kind of what my recommendation on that would be is to reduce that to a 2/3, which would bring you down to 5 of 7, as opposed to the 6, and also the addition of some sort of attendance policy, whether it's through ordinance or being set within the charter, to kind of not only hold those individuals accountable for actually attending the meetings and things of that nature, but also for the importance of this veto override. So next we're going to go to 213, and we're talking about the power to levy and collect taxes. So one of the things the charter restricts is levying property tax without a vote of the people. And I agree with this section. However, it doesn't talk about anything about rolling forward from assessments. So one of the things with that is the 7 mil property tax is very uncommonly used. It's rarely ever used without an actual vote of the people. But the method that's always, initiated is a rolling forward tax assessment increase. And if the intention is for us to always go back to the public to increase taxes, then we should add that clause in there. But even with that, the section specifically is almost irrelevant, because currently right now we don't have any property tax. All of our taxes are collected on a sales tax. So any kind of rolling forward restriction isn't really restricting anything. And as I said, the 7 mil tax isn't something that's really going to be implemented, especially with early on, where we're expecting to have a pretty large surplus based on the sales tax. So what would be our justification for that? And really it's more so around, this isn't something that's we need to be rushed into because we have this prevention in there. Next we'll go down to Article 3, where it talks about financial management. I'll let you get down there. Take a sip of water. It's pretty far down.
3 what?
It's Article 3, all the way at the bottom.
So would it be the mayor?
All the way down. Keep going.
I think you're going. All right.
It's like in the amendment section.
So
There you go.
Article 3. There you go.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Right.
So one of the goals, and this is kind of going to be based on a full assessment of this entire article, is we want financial transparency. And what happens is within this section, we're essentially complying with state law. So the only requirement we have for financial transparency is an annual independent audit, which, as I said, that's the bare minimum that state law says that you need. What would portray a better transparent system is, the implementation of either quarterly or monthly reports. And it's one of those things to where it's okay to say that and say that, okay, we're gonna ask for that anyways. But if we don't put the requirement on there, whoever comes behind us may not implement those same processes and things like that. So I think we need to put a little bit more emphasis within there on what those requirements are going to be to portray that financial management, the financial transparency, whether that's creating an open checkbook system similar to EBR, or if it's going to be monthly or quarterly financial reports that are accessible to the government, to the public. Next section, I think we've kind of talked about a little bit before, but in Article 4, where it talks about the initiatives and referendums. So the big thing within there is obviously the 60-day time limit. But one of the things I wanted to specifically kind of draw attention to is the section. You can look at it right there. It says the power, the second sentence in there, it says the power shall not extend to proposing or repealing ordinances. So the key to that is that little comma right there that you just highlighted over.
Hold on, let me remove it.
The addition of that comma actually separates that section from everything else. So if the intention of this was to say the power shouldn't extend to proposing or repealing ordinances that incorporates or that includes reducing appropriations of money, setting compensation, appealing reduction tax levies, it shouldn't include that comma. The inclusion of that comma actually gives the stance that the power doesn't extend to proposing or repealing any ordinance. And
so can we read it without the comma? Let's see, this power shall not extend to proposing or repealing ordinances, making or reducing the appropriation of money, setting the compensation of city officer employees, or authorizing. Yeah, it reads differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yeah, and
sorry.
if instead of a comma they would have put that includes, it would have read, specifically ordinance meaning that. And
So
where
the
this
power shall
becomes a
not exceed.
problem, I'm
So
sorry.
this power shall not. So this power shall not exceed the proposing or repealing ordinances that includes making or reducing the appropriation of money. Yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
Got
If
it.
it includes that, it's a completely different argument. But the comma actually makes this entire section irrelevant because the only power granted to you is the council passage or repeal of ordinance to be voted on in question. But the inclusion of the comma actually says that you're not extended proposing or repealing ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that could be argued in courts, but that includes you having to file the lawsuit, pay for the legal cost, and depending on the judge, they may take it at the punctual context or they will interpret it as what the intention of it was and allow it to be enacted. But to get to that stage, you still gotta meet those signatures in a 60-day time frame. But it's just one of those things to where giving more time to actually look through these types of errors would have been caught and corrections could have been made before having to require the public to now not only generate these signatures in 60 days, but also file a legal lawsuit to actually be able to enforce it.
Okay.
Um,
We got 2 minutes left to go to Q&A.
okay. So the next big one I want to talk about is Article 6. So in Article 6 is where we have right there, number 3, Code of Ethics. We are basically taking the stance that we're gonna comply with Louisiana Code of Ethics. And why is this a problem? Well, Louisiana, as everybody knows, is historically known for being probably one of the most corrupt political states in the country. As a matter of fact, if you look it up, it puts us right up there at the top. And we are supposed to be the city of the future. We want to be the model city in Louisiana and in the nation. So why would we not try to hold ourselves to a different standard? Why do we comply with the bare minimum requirements when it comes to ethics? If we want to be this model city, we should hold our elected officials accountable at a higher standard. And we had the opportunity to do this, and why it wasn't included in there, I don't know, but there's a lot more that could have been added in there that would have made it more compelling. And some of those things is the creation of an ethics commission that could oversee the offices. You could have that commission appointed based on uh, residents. You could have certain council members voted. You'll put them in. You could have the mayor put them in, but it would have to be individuals that are independent. We could have things like nepotism clauses, conflict of interest rules, gift bans, and financial reporting on gifts and things of that nature. That just holds our elected officials to a higher standard. So, and like I said, kind of with that was my last kind of my last section on what I wanted to talk about. But I want to stress the importance of what that means. Like I said, we want to be the model city for Louisiana, and I think we start with the integrity of our elected officials. So, kind of with that, I don't know if we've got any questions or anything like that. Anybody wants to
No,
hop
we
in and
don't.
ask anything?
We don't have any Q&A questions that have come in while you were talking. However, we do have somebody that has requested open mic. So let me go ahead and go to him. Bill, if you would. Let's see, Bill. Open up your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
We can hear you. Justin, can you hear him?
I can hear him.
All right, Bill, go ahead.
So one of the things that I had looked at, which I found interesting, was the preamble of the hold on, let me start my video. One of the things that I found interesting was the preamble of the charter, in that down it's page 3 of the charter. Some of the things that they put in there on their bullet points are the sacred right to petition governing bodies for communal reform, and a vision for a government that is lean, localized, and accountable. And I find it interesting that what we have is we don't have a government that's lean, accountable, localized. Well, it's localized, but it's definitely not lean. It's very bloated for what we are doing. The other thing that I would, and I've been beating on this all campaign long, would be Article 7, the Charter Amendment, amending or repealing the charter. And I will say it again, that this charter, based on what we've put in it, it is not amendable. With a 3/4 majority of the members putting forth an amendment instead of the 3/5 majority that has been taken up by the U.S. Senate, the Louisiana Senate, this is not a doable thing. Then the petition process, once again, 25% of the electors is not an unreasonable number, but the 60-day time frame that, as Justin pointed out, under the was it Article 3 for the other portion where you can make changes. The 60-day time frame is completely undoable. There's no possible way you can collect the 20,000+ signatures in 60 days. So those are the two things that I found interesting in this. And I'm sorry I missed the first portion of your of the first portion of the Zoom call. So that's where I beat on, and I'm going to continue beating it until Saturday. And there's a cute little girl behind you, Justin.
Manny.
So that's what I have.
He snuck away. Yeah, and yeah, I appreciate you talking about it, Bill. And this is kind of something that me and Bill have essentially aligned on. And it's the fact with it is I'm not against a charter. I believe Bill is not against the charter.
I'm not against the charter.
But the intention is we want to get it right the first time around. We don't want to have to go through this process. And I do believe that the current representatives right now are going to understand after this election the difficulty of getting the public on board with what you're trying to present. It's not an easy task. And we obviously overcame the opposition from East Baton Rouge Parish in the creation of St. George, but we were mostly unified, and it wasn't fully unified. It was like I said before, it was 54-46, and that's not a massively overwhelming consensus on the election of the incorporation of St. George. And what I'm experiencing going out and talking to people, and what I've heard from a lot of other people, is people don't like the idea of what the charter is. And I think some of that is an association of the charter and the salaries. And they're not married together. The salaries are what the salaries are, and there's nothing we can do about it. We're stuck with those salaries for the next 4 years, no matter what, whether the charter passes or fails, whether the entire council disagrees with them. They're there. We can change them for the future, but for the next 4 years, they are what they are. But they don't align with the charter. And I think that's one of the bigger gaps that's not really talked about, is we have a set of salaries that misaligns with the job responsibilities and the duties that are actually outlined in the charter. And I think had the had the council been a little bit more responsible with appropriating salaries for Lawson Act and appropriating salaries for home rule charter, a lot of these issues may have potentially been overlooked, because there would have been a lot more support for the charter, because there would have been a lot more trust in essentially the way that the council was operating. But when you added those salaries in there that don't align with the responsibilities in the charter, it forced a lot more people to actually go in and read a little deeper and start to discover all these little nuances in there that's really something that'll become a problem in the future.
A little quick note I found today when I was out canvassing. I came upon a man and his wife who came out to talk, and they said, "Are you part of the appointed council?" I said, "No, sir, I'm not." He said, "Well, good, because I am not voting for anybody that was appointed." The man was quite upset with the fact of these salaries that were approved, and he had been talking to his coffee club friends about the charter, and none of them could really wrap their heads around the charter. So we talked for a good 30 minutes talking about the charter and where I found that it to be a weak document and a flawed document. And he said tomorrow morning he was going to go talk to all his coffee club friends, and they will not be voting for this charter. So we had we turned 8 to 10 votes on that today. So that was a very positive thing. Unfortunately, Justin, it wasn't in your district. I was around today.
Yeah, maybe his coffee friends are in my
But every
district.
time we've talked to people in district 4, we have been able to, as Justin and I are fairly aligned on our views, we have been able to turn several people to vote for Justin. So I feel very good about that.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Justin, have a little bit of good news right now. You are streaming live on Facebook in the St. George Rants and Raves page, and you have 3 additional watchers that are not on the Zoom. So I'm going to invite them to go ahead and post any questions. If they do ask some questions, we'll go back to Q&A if that's okay with you. And look, if they want to ask Bill a question, we'll let them choose. All right. So I have a question for both of you. If you do get elected, do you commit that you will work hard to try to persuade the urgency to do a new charter, assuming that this charter does not get approved? Will that be a high priority for you?
Can I go? Yes, absolutely. Yes. That was one of the first things that I've said, is that the mayor and the governing authority can, as their first official act, put forth a new charter commission. So definitely that'd be the first thing to do. And the second thing I would do is put forth an ordinance to amend the salaries going forth to take effect in the next term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree, but I'm actually going to take it a little step further. Not only will I support a commission for the creation of a new charter, I will also petition the state on a change in the Lawson Act that actually would restrict any newly formed cities from creating a charter until elected officials are actually appointed in place. Because I think that's kind of where the biggest issue kind of came up, was we have all these people that came together and they knew they had to have an election within within a year. And they wanted to put the charter on that first ballot. And I think that's a flawed mindset, because we don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of how the city is actually going to operate yet. Until the city is operating for a couple of years, we don't fully know what we need. What do we need to change? And that's kind of the thing. If we had took the time and waited until the first elected officials came in, and then we had a charter commission that worked over that 18-month period, we may have learned things along that way that we need to add or change in the charter because of how things are running. And that's the biggest thing. Like, you've got a group of people who, by all means, they're very excited about all the hard work that they put forth to get to this point. And they had this idea of what they wanted to create, but they haven't been running a city. They've been fighting for the creation of a city, but they haven't actually physically run St. George yet. They don't know what St. George needs. So we can't really tell what, fully what's going to need to be changed in here until we actually have this experience of how things are working.
Can I piggyback on what you just said?
Mhm.
One of the things that when you're talking about they haven't run a city, the other thing that they haven't done is after they fought and struggled to form the city, they were appointed as our representatives, and they missed a very important process in being appointed is they didn't have to go out and talk to the people. And I don't think they've really gone out and talked to the people after they have taken office, which they've been operating in this echo chamber of yeses for the last year. And that's, I think, part of the reason why we are where we are. Is that you take 3 months to create a charter and you have 11 people that unanimously agree on something, I think there's an issue. Because I don't know of 11 people that would unanimously agree on everything. So I think it's an echo chamber effect where you have everybody's just saying, yes, that sounds good, and there are no dissenting voices. So you didn't have a robust discussion in order to get to a charter that isn't flawed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I have another question.
I think with that too is we'll have on the next charter commission, we'll have a lot more public input on it because of what's happening right now, I believe.
I think that I could say, Justin, that if this HRC does not pass, the minute that you guys start the new process, you will have a much more robust involvement of the people, because I think this has created a shock and awe.
Yeah.
So a little bit to that point, I have the next question is geared around the whole issue of elected versus appointed. Two of you have been very vocal throughout your campaign, and it's been challenged by many, kind of like saying, what does it matter? What does it matter that this was created by not created by elected officials, but that it was created by appointed officials? And the proponents of the HRC tend to downplay or disregard as an argument, a valid argument. But the two of you have certainly been very vocal and vociferous about it. So tough question is, what gives? What is it? Explain it. Why are you guys making such a big deal about, if it's a great document, who cares whether they were elected or appointed? But the fact that they were appointed, they've studied it, why do they have to be elected in order for us to have that level of confidence? Can one of you or both of you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, to essentially kind of reiterate what Bill talked about was the fact that as them being appointed, they didn't have to necessarily run a campaign that required them to go out and speak to the public on what their concerns are on things. And for myself, and I know Bill, we've been out there knocking on people's doors and actually talking to people about what their concerns are with the city. And I know that, a lot of these individuals talk to people leading up to the creation of St. George, but from my understanding, we've actually skewed a little off of what that initial information was that was provided on what we're structuring. I heard the references to Sandy Springs and a government structure based upon how them, and the fact that Sandy Springs has now shifted. So no, we're not following that model, but along the way, your discussions with these people and your campaigning for the creation of St. George, you shifted ideas. And without having that opportunity to actually speak to the public, how can you truly be a representation of those people? You got anything to add, Bill?
I agree. Yeah, I think it's very important that, going back to Maurice's question, I think it's very important that the people's voice be heard, not just the governor's voice who appointed these people. And not that I have anything against the governor, I voted for him, and I'm very happy that we had people who stepped up to serve that the governor appointed. I'm also think that those people should have shepherded us to this election so that the first duly elected council and mayor can take the reins and start governing and start creating our foundational documents. It's very important that the foundational documents are created by the duly elected and not appointed council. That way the people's voice is heard and not bypassed.
Mhm.
So another question is this whole concept of it being a bait and switch. Can we say that it disqualifies it as that, or I don't think I've heard either of you ever say that, but do you feel that that's what this is?
I have heard several people say it that I have talked to. They feel like that it was a bait and switch. Other people say they feel like they've been sold a bill of goods. That we were promised a lean, efficient, smaller, localized government, and the first real action to come out of the council is to create salaries that are neither lean or efficient. So I don't think it's an unfair thing to say that it has been a bait and switch. And I can understand why people feel that way.
Yeah, for
Justin?
me, I don't fully know. I'll have to, kind of defer to Bill's assessment on it. I know it's different from the first petition go around, and most of my research in St. George was based on that first petition. And during the second petition go around, I was actually on a different continent for most of that time period. So I didn't really look a whole lot into what it was, because at the time I didn't even know what was going on. So I don't know what the idea that was given during that second petition drive. But from my understanding, the ultimate goal has always been the creation of a school district. And we've essentially started by that path with the creation of St. George. This is the task that they told us we needed to accomplish first before we could get to the school district. And we're essentially working towards that with the announcement about Rick Edmonds about the introducing the legislation. But from what I've heard from others that were involved from the get-go, a charter was never mentioned as part of it. Now, I think it's something that's an ultimate goal in order to be able to have the flexibility to manage the city how we want. The charter is what we need, but I don't think anybody ever mentioned that this is going to be our first objective. Is we want to revolutionize the form of government from day one, essentially. And this is
something nobody else has ever done.
Yeah. So we're gonna change the government for our first elected officials, and it's gonna work great. Well, I mean, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but you're giving these individuals a disadvantage, because if the charter passes and ends up being, a completely flawed document that causes problems, all those individuals that were elected in that office are going to be the ones that are going to get blamed for it. They're not going to get the proper credit because they weren't necessarily given the best system to set them up. So
Bill is saying that this is close to, if not very closely defined as a bait and switch.
Mhm.
Justin, you're saying not really, because it wasn't really even mentioned. So either way, it's a negative thing. If it was a bait and switch, this isn't what was promised. And what you're saying is, heck, we not only didn't promise it, we actually never talked about it. This is just brand new, and it's been so controversial and it's being so divided. One wonders, why are we doing this when really there's nothing in the law, no legal requirements that this needed to be done right now?
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's no legal requirement that it needed to be done. I think there should be, like I said before, there should be actually a legal restriction on it being done in that time frame, and it doesn't affect anything. Like we could still effectively operate a government under the Lorson Act. We could still work towards the creation of a school district under the Lorson Act. There's nothing specific in the Lorson Act that would restrict us from doing normal day-to-day functions. Like I said,
what about the argument that, yeah, but the Lorson Act is going to allow the council to raise taxes with up to a 7 mil property tax?
That is a fear-mongering tactic, just like the fact that people say we'll be stuck under the Lorson Act. We can operate just fine under the Lorson Act. There are cities in our parish that operate just fine under the Lorson Act, and Central has a $70 million budget surplus because of that. What was the second part of the question, Maurice?
The second part of it was that that if we do not vote the HRC, it's going to easily allow for that to happen.
Oh, you're talking about the tax increase
for that,
and that
correct.
The council can impose up to a 7 mil tax without the vote of the people. The question is which council member would be foolish enough to try to do such a thing. And the second part of that question is, when has it ever happened in the state of Louisiana that a new tax has been passed by a council alone of 7 mils? And the answer, Justin can tell you right now, is never. It's never happened in the state of Louisiana. Mm. There's no council foolish enough to do that they would be, if they weren't recalled, they would be voted out at the next election.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing would be what justification would be there for that. Why would a council go in there and ask the question or increase property taxes by 7 mils? If one of the arguments for the creation of St. George was the fact that we're going to have this budget surplus, that we have, $30, $40, $50 million tax revenue from our sales tax, and East Baton Rouge Parish has only been contributing or spending about $10 million in the St. George area. So based on that, we have a potential for 20 or 30 or even $40 million in a budget surplus that's above what we've normally been, getting services related to. And essentially, any council member that decides that they're going to increase or they're going to levy a property tax of 7 mils just on a whim because, hey, $30 million in surplus isn't enough, we need more, they're committing political suicide. I mean, they're going to be up for potential for getting recall petitions and things like that. It would be complete uproar. I mean, you think the proposal for those salaries was a packed house? Just imagine what that meeting would look like and what those council members would have to go through if they voted yes for that, especially considering the surplus that would be in the budget.
All right, I've been asked, how do we ask questions? And so let me say, okay. Mm-hmm. If you want to ask questions, you're on Facebook, because right now, guys, you have about 10 to 15 more people watching on Facebook. So this is getting some traction here, right? So I guess what I'm saying is keep it going, keep it entertaining, keep it informed like you guys are doing. All right. Those of you that are on Facebook, if you want to ask questions and stay on Facebook, post them on Facebook in the group that you're in right now that you're watching. I will ask the questions as they come in. If you want to ask live questions and go on your mic and ask questions live directly to any or both of these guys, click on the link that was provided in the post, and then that will bring you into the Zoom room. And in the Zoom room, as a matter of fact, somebody else just joined the Zoom room. And in the Zoom room, if you want to ask questions, click on the Q&A and say that you want the mic, or click in the more actions option in Zoom, raise your hand, and we'll take it on a first come, first served basis. Okay. With that, sorry to interrupt. Justin, you were making comments about, or one of you was making comments about the political suicide and the onslaught of opposition regarding the taxes.
Right, and I was going to finish up on this part. I think that the political will and makeup of this council, the current council, will be fairly similar to the political makeup of the second council, the first duly elected council. The first council has not had any inclination to raise taxes. I cannot see that the second council, which will probably be even more conservative than the first, would have that inclination either.
Okay, Justin, any other additional comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is I have no intentions on raising taxes. I feel I'm taxed enough in Louisiana, and honestly, we have very little to show for it. And those taxes not only affect everybody, but they would affect me as well. It would increase taxes that I have to pay. So if we've got a surplus, there's no reason. I would strongly object to anybody that says we need to increase property tax by 7 mills, and I'm sure Bill would go along with that, as well as several other members on that council.
All right, any of you who are already logged into Zoom, again, if you want to ask questions, open mic. Now's the time to do that. So raise your hand or put it in the Q&A and request, and we'll open the mic and you guys can talk to these guys. All right, so next question we have is one regarding the school. The discussion about the HRC has taken the forefront and it's pretty much sucked the wind out of the campaign, but it's actually also been a lot of reason why some people actually ran in opposition. So the question is along the lines of, shouldn't we have been more focused on what we promised and make more of an issue regarding the school and what we're planning to do, and allow the candidates to fight for those positions based on an argument and discussion regarding the school, and not make it about something that we didn't ask, which would be high salaries and the HRC.
So I would say for the schools, we essentially already have the first step in place. The first step is going to be the introduction of that legislation in the state legislature. From there, it's going to be a long uphill process to actually get the approval of the school district. And it's one of those things that it's not going to be easy. Getting it through the legislation with the 2/3 vote for the constitutional amendment. And in addition, when you get to that constitutional amendment, you have to have the electors of the state of Louisiana vote in favor of it, as well as the electors in East Baton Rouge Parish to vote in favor of it. And I think a lot of that is going to be specifically how that legislation is written. But from there's a lot of planning that needs to take place right now, that in that case, that when we do get this school district, that we're not sitting in the background and saying, well, we got the approval, now we have to implement it and we only have a few months to do it. How we're going to do that? And we need to be working on the plan of what additional infrastructure do we need? What policies are we going to have? What's the taxes going to look like for that? All this stuff is very important to start doing immediately, even before we get the approval. That way, when we do get the approval of the school district, we can actually hit the ground running, as opposed to having to potentially rush into a plan. And I'm sure there's already some ideas that have been created. And like I said, this was the intention of St. George from the get-go. So there may be things that are already in place that I don't know about, but we need to start getting this enacted immediately.
Bill?
I would agree fully with everything that Justin said, and I don't have much more to add to that.
Okay, we do have a question. Somebody from Facebook says, I apologize that I arrived late to the live session. You might have already covered this, but how hard indeed would it be to actually change or amend the proposed HRC if it is accepted?
Can I take that one again, Justin?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's been my cudgel. I've been swinging the entire campaign, because I think this is the main issue in this campaign. If we don't get this right, if we approve this charter, it's Article 7. If we don't get this charter correct, and this one isn't, we will not be able to change it.
Show-
Proposals to amend the charter by the council, you have to have 3/4 majority of the authorized membership. You have to have 6 out of 7 members of council that want to make an amendment to the charter and put it on a ballot. That is 3/4 is more than the U.S. Senate or the Louisiana Senate in order to amend the Constitution, which requires a 2/3 supermajority. And the authors of the charter decided to make it even harder by making it 3/4. The other way in which you can do this is you can have a petition drive, and you have to collect 25% of the registered voters' signatures within the city. And you have to do that within a 60-day time period. And that's over in that's in a different section. I think it's section 2 that's in referendum.
It's Article 4.
I think it's Article 4.
Yeah. Right
The
there.
referendum's right there. B. Within a 60-day calendar days after the form of petition has been specified, the proposers shall obtain this 25% signatures. And it's not 15% as that says, that's for a referendum. For an amendment to the charter, it has to be a 25% signatures collected within 60 days. As I've said repeatedly, the original, the second petition drive to incorporate St. George took over 8 months. And that is even after they had all the information from the first failed petition drive to jumpstart the second petition. In my opinion, I think it is virtually impossible to change this charter if it passes.
So we're stuck with it.
We're stuck. We wouldn't be stuck with the Lorison Act because we can always put together another charter commission and create a charter that doesn't have these inherent flaws that this one does.
So when we say stuck, I mean literally, and it's not hyperbole, you're basically stuck with this because the numbers to collect within the short amount of time is an impossibility. So therefore, there's going to be no way to change this.
That's correct. The people will have no way to change it.
So how would we then change it? I mean, if we're saying, assuming.
Well, the authors told us that this was a document to last for generations. And if it passes, it will last for generations without being able to be changed unless
We'll amend it.
What's that?
That also means any kind of amendment.
Correct. That's what I mean. We will not be able to amend this charter.
Yeah, and so one thing to kind of add to that is we will be essentially we'll be stuck with it for the next 5 years. So in 5 years from now, there will be a review from it, but even during that review period, if there is any kind of change that is made to the charter, it still has to go back to a vote of the people to vote in those changes, and that alone is going to be a difficult process. It is not an easy thing to change, and not something that you want to just put it in there because of that difficult process to change it, even with the automatic reviews that are built within it.
Okay.
Now I would actually hope that if we change it for the better, that population would support it, but it's going to be subject to scrutiny, just as it is now.
All right, another question here. I'm not hearing you guys say that you're against the charter. And it appears you guys are also not saying that, let me read this, that you're against the possibilities of having a mayor and a city manager. But you are saying that the way this is written is that we would provide for a highly paid mayor with a very low job description to match that salary. Is that the right understanding of what you guys have been saying?
Yeah, so for me, I'm I'm not against a council managed form of government. What the alignment for that is how the duties for the mayor are aligned and the relationship it has to the compensation that has been set. To me, the $160,000 a year is not reflective of the roles and responsibilities that are outlined in the charter. And I get the idea, and I've looked at the research and I've looked at the data on the benefits of a council managed form of government. And there's efficiencies to having a city manager in place and not having a powerful mayor. But the construction of the way it's set up right now is misaligned with the direction that we're supposed to be going in. We're wanting to be physically responsible, but we've added these layers of essentially bureaucracy that's going to end up costing us more in the long run, and we may not reap any benefit or reward for it.
And I am
Bill?
not against the home rule charter. I think that the idea of a home rule charter, it allows us to blaze our path going forward. But I think that this home rule charter is flawed enough that we shouldn't pass it. And as we had said before, we would like to see another charter commission impaneled and given the full 18 months in order to put another charter up to the people. The mayor's position, because of the idea of the salaries, we're stuck with those for 4 years. I do like the idea of a council managed city, but the salaries don't align with the mayor's duties. And as Justin said, we have some, I think, added layers of bureaucracy built in with the city manager and having a program managing contractor with our private partner, that you have two people that are performing basically the same function. I know in other council managed cities, sometimes the mayor, who is part-time, also has a voting spot on the council, where you have 6 council members and the mayor acts as the 7th council person and has a vote. I wouldn't be opposed to that either. But under this particular charter, that's not the case. And the duties of the mayor do not match the salary.
Okay, we have only just a couple minutes left, Justin, and I think we should start bringing it to close. So Bill, you want to have any last minute thoughts on anything, and then we'll pass it over to Justin.
I'll pass it over to Justin. I appreciate you allowing me to come on and talk, and I look forward to everybody getting out and voting on Saturday. Make your voices heard. Vote no on the home rule charter. Vote for Justin in District 4 and vote for Bill Johannesson, Council at Large. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So since we kind of have a little bit more people in the Facebook Live, I'm going to close it with a statement that I made a little earlier when it regards to the section of ethics within the home rule charter. Essentially, what we've incorporated in this charter is the bare minimum requirement of we will comply with Louisiana Code of Ethics. As a proponent of us being the model city of governance, I believe we need to add a little bit more to that ethics section to hold our officials accountable to a higher level and to a higher standard. And that's what's going to create the model city, is going to be the integrity of the individuals that run it. And we're going to utilize this city to change the narrative of Louisiana being one of the most corrupt states in the country. And we do that at a local level right now, and then we allow everybody else to follow suit. So kind of with that, I appreciate everybody's time. As Bill said, I'm Justin Turner, running for District 4, and I join in again tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. and we'll have some more discussions. I appreciate all the questions and things like that. So thank y'all. Good night.
Good night.